All right. How's everyone doing tonight? We are just checking out some live footage here from Israel. So we're going to be talking about this tonight. I guess there's some interesting things developing over Israel right now, and I thought this would be a good time to talk about it. I have some resources. Obviously, I have the Bible here, but I also have, we'll come back to that. Also have this Art of War, so we're going to be talking about that a little bit tonight. I'm just making some coffee here as well. I don't know how long we're going to go on for, but I think it's important to talk about a little bit about what's going on here. And this is some live footage right here. Like, this is actually crazy what's going on right now. Let me just see if I can get some audio here going. All right, can you still hear my audio? I'm going to bring their audio down just a little bit, so it's just in the background. So I guess a few hours ago, what was happening was Iran had mentioned that they were going to be retaliating, I guess, in some ways by sending, I've heard reports of anywhere from 150 to 500 drones on its way to Israel. And it kind of looks like that Israel's intercepting missiles right now as we speak. And I don't know if it's drones, if it's missiles, whatever is going on right now. But I thought I would just talk about this a little bit while we're here. We'll come back to this. Let's mute this for a second. We'll come back to this just so and talk about a little bit about what's going on right now. So with regards to Israel, they basically have three primarily weapon systems. They have obviously the Iron Dome. They also have David's Sling, and then they also have Arrow 2, Arrow 1, Arrow 2, Arrow 3. And depending which source you look up, they all have various ranges. But the idea behind the Iron Dome is it can actually handle missiles that are in, let's say, approximately a range of about 70 kilometers. And then also 70 to 90 kilometers. And then you have David's Sling, which goes out a little bit further. That's, again, depending on the source, you're looking at about 300 up to 300 kilometers. The idea behind David's Sling is it can actually handle drones. So that's its capability. Its feature is to be able to take off, to be able to launch from a rocket and go in 360 degrees. So if you have the rocket like this, it'll launch and it could take off backwards. It can go forward, whatever way. And then, of course, the arrows, they can reach up to 1,000 kilometers, 2,000 kilometers, just depending, again, who you talk to and what resource you're using. So that's basically Israel's three primary defenses. So we're just keeping an eye on as to what's going on right now in Israel. And just, again, depending who you talk to, the drones are coming in. It's imminent. There is some concern that these drones could evade the Iron Dome and actually attack, whether it's military facilities or civilian homes and all this kind of stuff. And I thought this might be an interesting time to just have a little bit of interaction. Let me know what you think about what's going on right now. Feel free to share your thoughts, your comments. We can talk about it as this develops. So I'm just going to put it in the background so we can keep an eye on this. And what source is this? This is First. I think this is called First Live, I think is the channel. Channel's this? First Post. So we'll come back to this, but we're just going to go check out various news outlets as well. I'm not just going to stick with these guys, but let's see. All right. Can you hear me all right? Signs of the Bible. Yeah, I know. It's interesting, right? It's interesting. Like, I think a few days ago, we were not anticipating this. Like, we always know that Israel's on high alert. I was talking to Robert Breaker a few days ago on a live podcast, and he was talking about his trip in Israel. Can you hear the sound from the news channel? Because I muted it. I just want to make sure that the news channel isn't coming in right now. Should be just me, and then we'll go to their audio. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear me all right. So yeah, so the idea tonight is just to have a conversation about what's going on here. What's interesting is if you read from this book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, there's strategies involved when it comes to war. And one of those is, I'll just share. There's basically, there's different strategies, right? You take in to consideration, you take in how strong the general is. You take into effect how strong the army is itself, like in regards to discipline. You also take into effect the weather, what season, and then you also take into effect the earth, which is the distance. That's what you want to keep in mind. And one of the things that is shared in The Art of War is the idea that if you are weak, you pretend you're strong, and if you're strong, you pretend you're weak, and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of weird. Yeah, I am blanking out the audio from the news footage right now just because I'm talking and there's stuff going on in the background. But we'll go back. We'll go to the news and we'll listen to some of the audio. And we'll do that for a few minutes because I got to go get my cup of coffee. I'm actually just making some coffee as well. But I want to talk briefly about The Art of War and the idea that it's weird that Iran would actually announce for some strange reason that they're sending out drones to basically let Israel know to defend itself. I always found that weird that an army would do that. They would say, hey, we're coming, knock out all our drones, unless it's a distraction for other things that are coming down the pipes as well. So there'll be an interesting 24 hours. So with that being said, feel free to leave a comment, and I am going to play this news footage here with some audio for you. And just if somebody can just give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio from the news, and I'll go grab a cup of coffee and I'll be right back. You should be able to hear something now a little bit. So I believe this is over Israel. I'm just not sure whereabouts this is. Okay, excellent. Okay, I'll be back in 2 minutes. I'm just going to grab my coffee and then we can talk about this. Like I said, in the meantime, if you have any questions, if there's something that you want me to hone in regards to Israel, let me know that as well in the comments. And I'll be right.
Valley for me, it's community, expansion, love, and it's all to my heart. Swan.
هلا بدون صوت.
يا حبيبي
Daniel Hagari.
Thanks for saying that. Here I am talking. So yeah, awesome. Hey Gary, how's it going? All right, so I'm going to find another news channel, and then we're going to talk about Israel's perspective, what they're going to be doing. And I think he's a general. He's an IDF spokesperson. So we're going to listen to him talk about what their perspective, what their agenda is when Iran attacks, because as we know, if Israel is being attacked, not only will they defend themselves, but they will also go on the offensive, and they will actually, if anyone harms them, they will harm anyone that harms them. All right, so let's just jump to this little news briefing here. It's only a few minutes. Let me go to here. There it is, right here. And we'll come back and we'll talk about this.
The chief IDF spokesman is holding a press conference, and he's holding it in English, which is unusual. Let's listen to what he's saying.
Dozens of attack drones, as well as cruise missiles and ballistic missiles outside of Israel's border. A number of Iranian missiles fell inside Israeli territory, causing minor damage to a military base with no casualties. Only one little girl has been hurt, and we hope she will be well. The Iranian attack is ongoing. Our planes are in the air. Tonight, wide-scale attack by Iran is a major escalation. Together with our allies and partners, we are operating at full force to defend the state of Israel and the people of Israel. We will continue to fulfill this mission. Questions, please.
CNN is asking, what type and how many projectiles have been fired towards Israel tonight so far? And how many drones and missiles have been intercepted? And can you specify by region?
The event is still occurring, but until now, over 200 different kinds have been fired to Israel. Killer drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles. We have already intercepted a vast majority of the threats by Israeli systems and with assistance from our partners. We are still in the event. Our planes are still in the air, intercepting targets, and we are ready for any threat that will come to Israel. We will do everything we need, everything to defend the state of Israel. Thank you very much.
All right, so Daniel Hagari typically gives very, very brief news conferences, Sandra, and he's saying that the attack is still ongoing. Some 200 drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles have been fired so far.
All right. Okay, so I've heard numbers of between 150 and 500 drones, missiles, all this kind of stuff. Like I mentioned earlier, Israel has mainly 3 attack systems, defense systems, if you will, and that, of course, is the Iron Dome, David's Sling, and then also Arrow 1, 2, and 3, I believe. So maybe we'll find a video on that to showcase the different weapon systems, because I think it's important to understand a little bit about how Israel defends itself. And then we can have a conversation of, obviously why they're defending themselves, because Iran is basically saying, we're attacking, we're retaliating, we're attacking you. We've sent drones and they're coming. So let me just see if I can find that footage of what those weapons are. So this one, there's one video that shows all 3. So the Iron Dome is interesting, but I think it's important to see all 3. Let me just see. Let me see. Yeah, I think this video here explains it quite a bit. All right. So this should explain their 3 main defense systems. And then, yeah, no, for sure. And I'm pretty sure with Netanyahu, he's going to go after Iran. I'm pretty sure, because that's part of their mandate is, or their MO, their mission objective, of course, is to, if they get attacked, somebody's going to get hurt. It's kind of how it works. It's not good enough to defend themselves. But once they're done defending, then they're going to be on the offensive. So let's just have a look at some of their weapon systems that they have here. And I think this will make more sense.
Without close defense capabilities forming part of a country's multi-layered defense systems, strategic sites are simply not adequately protected. In the context of multi-layer defense development and deployment around strategic sites and sensitive targets, Israel has taken on the role of global leader. Israel has carried out a test of its air defenses, which for the first time reveals a highly integrated system that can knock out a broad spectrum of targets, from maneuvering ballistic missiles to simple drones. This accomplishment has far-reaching implications not only for Israel's defense capabilities, but for the United States. The U.S. Army is in the process of developing an integrated tactical defense system called the Integrated Air and Missile Defense Battle Command System. If the Israeli air defense integration is complete, it is probably the first time that systems optimized for different threats can share threat data and hand off responsibility to different tiers of the defense system.
Okay, this is what I wanted to talk about for a second right here. Is there are 3 defense systems. As you can see, the Iron Dome has a radius. Now, again, depending what source you use, there's going to be ranges, but I think it's pretty safe to say that this is pretty accurate within 20, 30 kilometers. So you have the Iron Dome, basically up to 70K, and then David's Sling, which is more designed to handle drones up to 300 kilometers. And then also you have the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3. So Arrow 2 up to 1,000 kilometers away. And then Arrow 3 is up to 2,000 kilometers away. So again, they'll explain a little bit more, I think, how the Iron Dome works. And if there's something that's not in this video, it's only like a 5-minute video. Maybe I can dive a little bit deeper onto the Iron Dome. But let's continue.
Unlike the U.S. effort, Israel's integrated system is national and includes ballistic missile defenses (BMD). The U.S. Army system is tactical and only attempts to deal with tactical ballistic missile threats, and even there relies on the evolved but still antiquated Patriot system. Above all, the Israeli test for the first time demonstrated a system that can destroy cruise missiles. While most of the global focus since the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has been on drones as an emerging unconventional threat to traditional military operations, the cruise missile represents the biggest threat to critical infrastructure installations and defense bases, both forward operating and fixed bases at national level. The rise of high-precision cruise missiles in the hands of second-tier actors such as Iran and Iran's client Yemen presents a threat to Israel and to its newfound allies and friends in the Gulf states. The unacknowledged Iranian attacks on 2 Saudi Arabian facilities, Abqaiq and Quraysh, made clear that Iran had the ability to fire autonomous drones and cruise missiles and strike targets at high accuracy without a man in the loop. And let's now talk a bit about Israeli air defense systems such as David's Sling and Iron Dome. Firstly, we'll see what David's Sling has. David's Sling is a complete air defense system to defeat the full spectrum of air and missile threats. It is developed by the Israeli defense contractor Rafale Advanced Defense Systems and the American defense contractor Raytheon. Designed to intercept enemy planes, drones, tactical ballistic missiles, medium to long-range rockets, and cruise missiles fired at ranges of 40 kilometers to 300 kilometers. David's Sling is meant to replace the MIM-23 Hawk and MIM-104 Patriot in the Israeli arsenal. David's Sling serves as a flexible, multi-purpose weapon system capable of engaging a range of targets from a dynamic range of platforms. Furthermore, the system is composed of a 2-stage multi-pulse stunner interceptor missile, which uses electro-optical IR sensors and an ELM-2084 AESA multi-mission radar by ELTA Systems for targeting and guidance, and control systems by Elbit Systems. It can be mounted on an array of ground, naval, and aerial platforms, including existing rail and canister launchers. And the firing units allow for 360-degree coverage through vertical launch of the missile. In the last section, we will discuss about Iron Dome. Iron Dome is a mobile all-weather air defense system developed by Rafale Advanced Defense Systems and Israel Aerospace Industries in 2007 since the escalation of the conflict. Iron Dome's missiles, which cost $20,000 each, are fired from a team-operated battery, acting in conjunction with battery-deployed radar-guided early warning systems. The Iron Dome relies upon a high-resolution ELM 2084 active electronically scanned array radar to detect and track incoming projectiles. The system is designed to intercept and destroy short-range rockets and artillery shells fired from distances of 4 kilometers to 70 kilometers away and whose trajectory would take them to an Israeli-populated area. According to its manufacturer, Iron Dome could operate day and night under adverse weather conditions and can respond to multiple threats simultaneously. For its specifications, Iron Dome has 3 central components: detection and tracking radar, battle management and weapon control, and missile firing unit with 20 ready to fire from container launchers. For the radar system, ELM 2084 has been developed by an Israeli defense company, ELTA, while the control system has been built by an Israeli software company, Impress Systems, engaged by Rafale. The missiles launched by the firing unit of Iron Dome includes Tamir interceptor missiles. It has several steering fins for high maneuverability and is equipped with electro-optic sensors. In addition, the Tamir interceptor was designed for high efficiency and low cost. The missile is 3 meters long, weighs 90 kilograms with 160 millimeter diameter, and it could reach 5,000 to 70,000 meter range. In short, for Israel, these air defense systems are critical to the national security of the country. That's all for today.
All right. Okay, so now we have a little bit more of an understanding of how they work. I think one of the biggest benefits is that they're mobile. These systems are mobile, meaning once they fire, they can actually move them to another location. And with the case of the Iron Dome, basically you have 3 mechanisms that you're moving around, so you can actually hide the remote area and then also deploy some of the sensors around Israel, obviously. And then you have the rockets at different places as well, that once they fire, you can actually move them to another location. That way, the enemy doesn't get a chance to lock on to where you're at. So that's very important. Very important. All right, so let's see what's going on here in the comments. News forgot to explain how things are. Yeah. So I think it's important that Israel is on high alert right now. And I think to us, they could feel like this is just another walk in the park kind of thing. I think if this were to happen here, we would not be sleeping at all. They still got to go to work on Monday. And what's interesting is this feels like this started happening after the Sabbath was over. Like it started, like I started seeing news feeds popping in all over the place. And I thought, this might be interesting to talk about this tonight. That's the benefit of having a channel like this where I can pop on at any time. There are other channels that they're so used to making a video in the morning. By the time this stuff hits the press or hits the news, it'll already be basically yesterday's news. So but the reason why I wanted to share this or talk about this is because we know that Jesus is coming anytime. It could be tonight, could be tomorrow, it could be a week from now, it could be a month, a year, we don't know. Our job is to occupy. Yeah, right now we're looking at it's 10:30 my time, Mountain Standard Time. So our job is to occupy as a Christian. What does that mean? That means to be able to share the gospel, preach the gospel with other people, edify the church, build each other up, let people know that we are joint heirs in Christ. We are one with him. We are his flesh. We are his bones. That is very, very important. So yeah, we are definitely in the end times. Anybody you talk to, they're like, yeah, you know what? This feels a little bit different. than, let's say, a year, 2 years, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But you still have to occupy. Like I had dinner with a friend tonight, and we're talking about some issues that he was going through, and we just talked, right? We just shared with each other. I still lead a men's ministry during the week. On Monday nights, we have a Bible study, and we're expanding as well. Our church is expanding. Basically, in the last, I would say probably in the last 5-7 years, we've almost doubled our church attendance. So something is happening. There is definitely an interest in the body of Christ, in the church, like in the idea of people actually coming to a physical building. There is an interest. There's also an interest and a hunger online. Like people are gravitating towards YouTube channels where they can feel a sense of community, a sense of camaraderie, a place basically to call home in some ways, because you can't always take off to a church, especially if you don't have a local church, and it's way easier to actually go online. And there's so many channels that you can watch. So I appreciate you guys coming to this channel to watch. Something to keep in mind, this is something that I'm working on right now, is I basically call it a joint venture with my church. And the idea is I would do a Black Swan ultimate round table at my church in an evening, most likely on a Sunday night. And what I would do is I would obviously host it, facilitate it, but we would record it live, and then we would have it interactive, kind of like this. And then what I would do is I would also invite guests from around the world to beam into that live stream while we have a panel of like 3 to 4 guests on stage at the same time. So that's the plan. That's something that we're working on right now. So I mentioned it to my pastor, and he's very interested in the idea of me spearheading something like that, and just kind of like a co-op, if you will, with our church. So that'll be kind of cool, because he has preached a couple of times this summer, or this spring, I should say, on the rapture. So it's kind of cool. So that's coming down the pipes. It'd be kind of interesting to actually see me live on a stage instead of just here in my office, and interacting with people in attendance, and then having a panel live, and then also having a virtual panel as well of people that are, like I said, from all over the world. So that's if I were to do it, if I were to say yes, we're going to do this, I would probably say it would be like in June or July, maybe even August. So we'll see. It's definitely going to be in the summer sometime. I just have to figure out a time. So many things going on. So hey, Darcy, how's it going? Darcy's in one of my men's groups, so that's pretty cool. He actually is leading the men on Monday nights with a Bible study, so that's pretty cool. He's one of our leaders, so that's awesome. So welcome, Darcy. We're just talking about Israel, talking about the drone attacks happening in Israel, talking about some roundtables coming down the pipes as well. Yeah, and I've thought about that in regards to, where is my, here it is. Every time I pull away from this mic, I always knock down my microphone. This here. This is basically a thumb drive. I don't know if you can see this. It's a little picture of a black swan. I know you might think it looks like a dinosaur or something like Barney or something, but it's supposed to be a black swan. So I just drew it on there with the marker. But on the backside, it's Black Swan Revelations. And the idea is that I would leave this on my desk so that if somebody breaks into this house after we're out of here and they see a mountain full of King James Bibles, that they would see this on top and they would go, oh, what's this for? Let's take this and this. and they would leave and put it into their computer, and then it would have a video of me talking and saying, here's what happened. We were raptured. We were out of here. You're probably wondering what's next, what to do next. And I'll just lead them through a series of videos that they can watch. It's like 5 minutes or whatever. And then I'll also leave some documents with some scripture verses that they can look up in case they can't walk around with this thing because it's illegal. But they can take it and they can watch the videos at home. So that's also what I'm working on. So I think that's not a bad idea, is to have a place in your house where non-Christians can come in while they're robbing your house and emptying everything, looking for gold and silver and all this kind of stuff, that they would come across tracts, they would come across Bibles, they would come across thumb drives, all this kind of stuff. And then they would be prepared as well, because if we're not here, who's going to tell them about the message of Jesus Christ? Where are they going to find it? If all the churches are closed down and we're out of here, and people are like, I never knew that Jesus Christ was real until these people left. Like they're actually in heaven now. And the government is saying that aliens took them or something else happened to them. They just went crazy and whatever. Who knows what the excuse could be. When they see these videos that are on the thumb drive, they'll be like, wait a minute. These people were actually raptured. They weren't kidnapped by aliens. The government's lying to us. So that's something that I'm working on as well behind the scenes, just trying to make videos to leave for people, because this is going to go away by the way of the dodo bird this year. YouTube, this will be, I would be shocked if we're still able to preach the gospel in a year or 2 years from now. I would be surprised, highly surprised. They're already squashing channels like this. I see there's some days where I'm losing subscribers, and I'll have people saying, hey, I subscribed to your channel. I didn't get notified of your live stream. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Did you click on the bell? They're like, yeah. Then they go to check, and then they see that they're unsubscribed from my channel. So I know that's happening, and I know my videos are getting squashed by Google. I know that, because think about it. I made a video last year about Klaus Schwab. It was only a couple minutes long. That video hit 60,000 views. That was last year. So my videos right now average about 4,000, 2,000, 1,500. And it's weird because I'll look at some other channels. I'm like, how are these guys putting a video and all of them? We're basically saying the same thing. And they're like 30, 40,000 views or whatever. And they're like, and they have 1,000 subscribers. And I'm like, it's so weird, but it's like a secular network, if you will. So I get it. I get it. And the guy didn't have any bells and whistles or anything. He was just talking. And his channel is, I think he has about 1,000 subscribers. He's got about 130 videos. And some of his videos are like 100,000 views. And I'm like, how is that even possible? And it was talking about wrestling and that kind of stuff. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's the secret. Talk about pro wrestling. But it's interesting. I have to resubscribe many. Yeah, it's interesting, right? That happens. And I feel like there's some times where, like, it took me a year and a half to get to 1,000. And then once I got to 1,000, which was last July, I'm now at 5,000 subscribers. So I know it takes time. But I also have a boatload of videos too. And I know some videos aren't exciting for some people. They're like, oh no, Shane is talking about Exodus and he's going verse by verse. That's not exciting for some people. But what they don't understand is the deeper that you dive in Exodus and Leviticus and all these books, you're actually becoming more in tune with the Holy Spirit the more you read the Bible. So this is why I read the whole Bible. I don't just pick a verse a day. I read the whole Bible. So let's go find. This is why I like doing a live stream, because I could bring you guys along for the ride. I could take you for a bus ride. So we're going to go back and we're going to go watch another news network. And we're going to see what's going on around the world. So hang tight, hang tight. Just talk amongst each other here. Let me see if I can find Israel Live. Sometimes these news media outlets will say it's live, but all they're doing is they're rerunning footage and they're looping it, and then they go to bed and they just make you watch it. So let's just go to NBC, which I think most of them are probably asleep, but let's just see. Let's just see what they have to say. Okay. Here comes. Here comes.
What America saw as the threat and the Iranian plans. There has been a telephone call between President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, their first conversation since these events started. America very much involved politically, clearly. President Biden talking about the
So this is live right now.
support for Israel's security at this stage. But militarily also, it has been involved with U.S. military assets in the region, taking down some of those Iranian drones and missiles. The USS destroyer, the USS Carney, had been on its way home, having engaged Houthi rebels firing missiles.
Okay, so that's Sky News. So let me see if I can find another news outlet, because some other ones are a little bit better. So let me come back to you guys, and let's just see if I can find another one. Okay, so this one was 1 hour ago. So this is DW News. So we're going to check it out and see what these guys have to say here. So let's just jump back to these guys. Hello from the Gulf Coast. It's little Doodlebug. What we're doing is we're just watching the various news outlets as they report what's going on in Israel. And my understanding, it's early morning. We heard a chicken, or we heard a rooster crow, which kind of reminds you a little bit of Peter's story when he denied Jesus Christ 3 times in the morning, and then he heard a rooster. So it's kind of interesting that the very first footage that we saw, you can hear a rooster. So that's kind of interesting. All right, so let's just go to this other news outlet here. Have a look. See what they have to say. So now it's 200 drones. So depending on the source, you're going to hear people say 150. You're going to hear people say 500 drones. And this was about an hour ago.
By Iran against Israel. The Israeli army says more than 200 missiles and drones were fired from Iran. Most of the missiles have been intercepted by Israel, and the US, UK, and Jordan have also shot down drones. Air raid sirens have sounded across Israel, and explosions have been heard in Jerusalem. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard says the assault is in retaliation for an attack on its consulate in Syria, which killed several generals. It's the first time Iran has launched a direct military attack on Israel despite decades of intense hostility.
All right, so I'm going to go to another channel, YN News. Sometimes they have more interesting coverage, so we're just going to switch to them.
Iran-Israel tensions long reach.
See if you could see that. Yep. Okay. We're going to play this here.
A boiling point have finally blown up. Iran has stated an airborne attack against Israel, launching over 200 drones as part of what it calls Operation True Promise. Iran says ballistic missiles have also been fired here.
So this footage would have come in about, I want to say I saw this footage about 6 hours ago. It's 10 o'clock my time. So this is, it's interesting that they have clips of rockets coming in, but they just, it seems like every news outlet has the same clips, same handful of clips, because we just watched this one from another news outlet and now these guys are having it. So I'm like, okay, I get it. You get one feed and that gets sent out to all the news outlets. But it's interesting that they said more than 200. So this is what I'm trying to pick up on, as well as every time you go to a news outlet, what are they saying? And is it the same script as another channel, another agency? So let's continue here.
These are the first visuals we have of the missiles fired by Iran, a barrage of objects seen flying through the night sky over Bethlehem from Iran and headed towards Israel. Sirens were activated in Jerusalem at around 1:45 a.m. local time. Loud explosions were heard, with the air defense systems shooting down objects over the city. The multiple interceptions lit up the night.
You know what's interesting? Just a little observation here. I think this is why some people appreciate this channel, is because I look at things from different angles. If you didn't know that these were rockets and you didn't hear the sirens, I think most people would look at this and go, that those rockets that you're saying are rockets look like fireworks because they're burning out. And I get it. The Iron Dome is smashing them all the smithereens. And the idea is that the rockets get close and then they explode. And if there's a rocket nearby, that's what causes them to explode. I get it. I'm just saying it looks like the rockets are burning out and fizzling out. And if you were to look on July 4th and look up into the sky, and you would see fireworks kind of do the same thing. I'm not trying to go conspiracy here. I do believe those are rockets. But it's just an interesting observation that, again, if you take away the sound and you take away the sirens, you're going to look at it and go, wow, are we celebrating a birthday? What's going on here? Are these fireworks? What are we actually seeing here? You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know it. Anyways, YouTube for news. Yeah, it's interesting that you can actually go all over the world instantaneously, and then you can also see what the people are commenting at the same time. That's what I look for too. So let's just see if we can see. I don't know if some channels don't activate the comments. Can you see these comments? Let me make it full screen. It's probably hard for you guys to read those comments, so I'll read them out. War is old. War is old men talking, young men dying. That was an hour ago. War after war, death after death, and history, true. And when you think about a black swan event, many people try and predict the black swan event by using history. You cannot do that. You can't predict black swan events by looking at all the data and saying, this is what's happened in the past, therefore this is what's going to happen in the future. You can't do that. The only way you can do that actually is using the scripture. All right, so now wait and watch fuel prices skyrocket. Yeah, right now I think our gas is $1.62 per liter. All I say is defend yourself, but don't take my tax money to do so. Well, it's kind of, I think in some ways that's what the tax money is for, even though that wasn't the idea behind it at the very beginning. But hey, the USA has many homeless people need the money, also tired of spending money to other countries for whatever, not helping our citizens. 20K cost drones, first million cost Sea Dome and Iron Dome missiles. What the heck? So Israel Israel attacks an embassy in violation of international law, killing Iranian officials. Iran retaliated without victims, and Israel said it's Iran that must be condemned. So you can tell which side they're on. We don't learn from history. I pray those who have no say in this but have to deal with the consequences for sure. Georgia Guidestones depopulation plan. See, U.S. better stay away from this stuff. The world since COVID has lost its mind. God have mercy upon the world. I'm getting tired of people fighting back, being labeled as terrorists. Stop it. The UN, the world's greatest joke and expense to us taxpayers who want the UN abolished. The UN building would serve humanity better as a homeless shelter. China must be watching like a fox. I bet Zelensky would be thinking, that's my weapon budget completely gone. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. All right. Okay, coming back. We're coming back. Yeah, it's interesting that I know there might be some people watching this from Europe or whatever that might be a big fan of Zelensky. One of my first videos was on President Zelensky. I was like, I feel like this politician is up to no good. Kind of like our prime minister is up to no good. I put him in the same category, and some people got mad at me. They said, you can't put President Zelensky, Trump, Trudeau, Biden, you can't put them in the same group. You can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, I can. I just did. I just put them all in the same group. They all have their own agenda, and they're not looking after me. They're not listening to what I have to say at all. Otherwise, they'd all be Christians. They have their own agenda. They have their own earpiece. Tells them what to say, tells them what to do. So it's interesting that with President Zelensky, he came to Canada and we gave him, this was when was it? Can't remember when it was. Might have been last fall. But we gave President Zelensky a standing O. And we also gave a Nazi soldier a standing O as well. And then the Speaker of the House had to resign because of that, because he didn't vet who the people that we are applauding. But yet we have Zelensky asking us for $650 million with no paper trail, no receipt, no nothing. We just, here you go. And then we're surprised in Canada as to why our gas prices are going up and why our homes are going up all across Canada. And we're shocked. We're surprised. We're surprised that Trudeau was able to give out thousands of dollars to people. And I was on the front line. I didn't get one check. I didn't ask for a check when I was on the front line. I know other people stayed home and got checks from the government. And then they got an email a few months later saying, could you please pay us back? Remember that money that we borrowed you? We want it back. I know people that had to pay that money back. So if they borrowed or if they were given as a gift $1,000, 6 months, a year later, they had to give that money back to the government. That's not a gift. That's a loan. That's all that was. So would have been better to say no. I didn't take a cent from them. Point is, Zelensky came in, asked for $650 million, left, and then shortly thereafter, all of a sudden, Hamas has thousands of rockets. I'm not saying that Hamas was directly funded by Canada through Zelensky and then back to Hamas so that they could attack Israel. What I am saying is, how come they had so many weapons? How come they had so many rockets pointed at Israel before October 7th? And coincidentally, it was like a month or so after Zelensky showed up in Canada. Are we funding terrorism? Sounds bad, right? Sounds bad. But yet we don't ask for a receipt. We just give money away and then we expect our people to pay for it. and fund other organizations. Again, I'm not saying Zelensky flew to Iran on his next stop or to Lebanon or to the Gaza Strip and said, hey, look what Canada gave me. They gave me $650 million. I will buy weapons for you. What kind of weapons would you like? I'm not saying that's what he did, but he has asked for several types of weapons. I put it on my channel. The guy knows his weapons. So if you're going to make a case that he would be an arms dealer, you could pose a bit of a case for that for President Zelensky. Why? Well, Ukraine was also known as a corrupt nation once upon a time ago. Don't know if they are today, because now today they're run by a dictator. How do I know he's a dictator? Well, he's the only political party in the UK, and they're under martial law since 2022. And President Zelensky felt it was okay for people to not have an election at the end of March because it wasn't safe. It wasn't a good time for them to vote. And besides, they didn't have any other political party to vote on because President Zelensky called a snap election when he came into parliament and said, hey, everyone, you have 30 days for the election, and they didn't have enough time. So he basically dissolved the two Russian-leaning political parties so that he is the only one in control, and he hired his media company that he created, the one that he wrote the script, We Are the People, for his TV series that won some awards, and gave him the idea that he should become the Ukrainian president because that's what his TV series was about, and ran. And once he became president, then he actually brought his production company into his political party. So that's all his people. They're all from his company. So he's a little bit of a dictator, just a little bit. But what do I know? What do I know? Anyways. No receipts. Yeah, like just no paper trail. I just thought that's kind of important to have a little bit of a paper trail. And everywhere Zelensky went, everybody's applauding him. And my first video was like, I don't think he's up to any good. And I got a lot of people mad at me. They're like, how could you say that? How can you say, well, he's the 6th president of Ukraine. And if something happens to him where he has to leave for a little while, there will be a 7th president comes in. And then Zelensky could come back and he could be the 8th, which really he's actually the 6th president. So what does that remind you of? Revelation? Yeah, you wouldn't be far off. So yeah, I'm not saying President Zelensky is the Antichrist because that's so 2 years ago when I said that. I'm just saying he's acting like one. He probably doesn't even know it. He's doing what he thinks is best for his country. And the way I think it works for the Antichrist is very similar to how it worked in Jesus' day with his disciples. Nobody knew who was going to betray Jesus Christ. Nobody knew. We just knew, based on scripture, that somebody was going to betray Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ said, one of you is going to betray me this night. John leans over to his chest and says, who is it? And Peter's like bumping him, saying, ask him, who is it? And Jesus said, whoever I dip this bread into this sup, or into this, whatever it was that they're dipping sauce. This is the person that is going to betray me. So I picture Jesus dipping it and then handing it to Judas. That's the way I picture it. But every disciple in that room said, is it me? That should tell you something about who the Antichrist is. I don't think he knows who he is until he gets possessed by the devil, just like Judas. All the disciples said, is it me? Is it him? Is it them? Is it us? Who is it? They were all saying it. So if all the disciples, all 12 disciples, could think that they could be the one that betrays Jesus Christ, why would you think that someone would absolutely 100% know that they are the Antichrist before they get possessed by the devil. They just probably believe that they're doing the thing that they need to do. And then when they get to that point where it's like, okay, now the devil enters into them, now they're the Antichrist. Because it feels like there's always Antichrist around. There's always the spirit of the Antichrist, meaning this guy could be very, very evil. He just might not be the Antichrist, but he could. And then he dies. And then this guy comes in and, man, he's really bad. But we know from scripture that whoever this person is, one of his signatures is that he's going to help get that temple going, just like King Herod did. King Herod funded the Jews' second temple. He wasn't a Jew. He wasn't from the tribe of Judah, but the Israelites, the Jews, accepted his money to build a second temple. They had no problem with it. So why wouldn't they have a problem if another guy came in and said, I will build that temple? But this time, after it's built, 3.5 years into Jacob's trouble, he will break the treaty and sit down and declare himself to be God. That's when the Jews are like, oh, wait a minute. What did you just say? Oh, I'm God. I'm Yahweh. Wait a minute. You're not God. We only worship one God. And then they flee. They get out of there. They get out of Dodge. So that's why I say anybody can be the Antichrist right now. Could be Trump. Could be Trudeau. It could be Biden. It could be Zelensky. It could be Putin. May not be. Could be somebody else. Could be somebody else that's more influential than all those guys. But name a guy right now that is like coming to visit countries all over the world and say, I need weapons in the name of peace. Name 2 people. There's nobody. There's not 2. There's only one person that has gone to most countries and said, look, if you give me weapons, I will bring peace. That's Zelensky. Trump isn't asking for weapons. He did say he'd end the war in Ukraine versus Russia, Russia versus Ukraine. Trudeau's not asking for weapons. He's giving away our money. Only Zelensky's asking for money for weapons, for peace. Why? Because he wants to dissolve NATO. He wants to dissolve the UN, and he wants to create a U-24 organization. What is the U-24? The idea behind U-24 is that if some country in the world needs food, within 24 hours, Ukraine can deploy food resources from other parts of the world to that country to feed them in less than 24 hours. That's a good thing. Also, if a country steps out of line like China, Russia, United States, Canada, Israel, armies can move in less than 24 hours to stop that country. That's what Zelensky has proposed on the table. That's what he wants to do. He wants to make Ukraine the headquarters of U-24, United 24. Which basically means in 24 hours you get food, but you also could get taken over within 24 hours by Zelensky. I'm not making this stuff up. This is him saying this. He said this is what he wants to create. So I picture, the big Avengers building in Civil War, in Captain America, I think it was, in Avengers, that big building that Tony Stark helped design. I could see that being a Ukrainian building in UK, like a huge infrastructure, a huge building. Because I don't know if many people know this, but Ukraine has probably the most sophisticated tech when it comes to drones and computers. They have engineers, scientists, all this stuff working on artificial intelligence. Ukraine, look it up. Ukraine is second to none when it comes to drone technology. Same thing for artificial intelligence. You want to know who's next or very close to next in line? Israel. Honing in on artificial intelligence. US is in there somewhere as well. But Israel is spending a lot of money on artificial intelligence. They're also learning how to fight against drones. Zelensky's spending a lot of money on how to attack with drones. This isn't a secret. Herod was Jewish through his mother, remember, right? He went through the motions of following the Jewish law, make sacrifice, also dabbled. Yeah, I also thought he was Edomite for some reason. I'd have to look into that with Herod. I thought he was descended from Esau. Somebody can correct me. Feel free to correct me on there and say yes. Or tell me that King Herod was, like when you say Jewish, you have to be a little bit more specific, because when I say Jewish, I'm talking about Israel. I'm talking about from one of the tribes of Israel, not necessarily an Israeli, because there are different rules behind that. If you want to be an Israeli, your mother has to be born after 1949, or you have to be born in Israel, or your mother has to be born in Israel. And you have to be practicing Judaism in order to become an Israeli citizen. And you also have to get rid of your passport. So if you're an American and you're a Jew and you want to live in Israel, you have to give up your American passport. There's no dual citizenship in Israel. Sorry, that doesn't happen. But in Canada, it's a little bit different. If you're born here, you're instantly a citizen. If you're born in the States, you're a citizen. I think we're two of the only countries in the world that do that. I don't think anybody else does that. But again, in Israel, Netanyahu was born in 1949, so he qualifies to be a Jew because he's born in Israel, so he can be an Israeli, I should say. He qualifies for that. So it's interesting. So just because, this is according to Romans, just because you call yourself a Jew doesn't mean you're a Jew, right? Because you have to believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. You have to believe that God is the Father of Jesus Christ. Because if you know the Father, you're going to know the Son. If you know the Son, you're going to know the Father. It's kind of a big deal. You have to know that Jesus Christ is the King. He is the King. He's the King of the Jews. He's the King of Israel. Hopefully I don't get canceled for saying that, but Jesus Christ is the King of Israel. He's the King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. One day, every knee will bow. One day, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. That's a fact. That's going to happen. One day, Israel is going to be diminished by 2/3. Just read Zechariah 14. It's not good times for Israel, but one day they will turn and all Israel will be saved. So I'm hoping I'm not saying anything that is crazy town. But it's important to know that God has not forgotten about Israel. But Israel has forgotten about God. It is interesting that Netanyahu said, God be with us today. So that's the first time I ever heard him say that. But really, they're pretty much depending on the Iron Dome, David's sling, Arrow 2, Arrow 3. Like, let's just be honest. Let's be honest, because there was a king trying to think of what his name was, that basically was worried that they were going to get attacked by, I want to say, is it the Syrians? Persians? I think it was the Syrians. And he basically prayed, and then I think he went to Isaiah. Hopefully, if somebody knows this story, they can, because it's just in my head. And the guy was basically crying, saying, like, Lord, like, we're going to be extinguished here pretty quick. And the Lord interceded for him. Israel is not like that right now today. They are a democracy. They're not a monarchy. What does that mean? Well, not everybody worships God, believe it or not, in Israel. Not everybody depends on him for their survival. They believe in their weapons. And I believe God is waiting for them to exhaust their weapons so that they can turn to him and say that he is their provider. He is their provision. And they would acknowledge the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, which is Jesus Christ. That hasn't happened yet today. And in fact, there are many Jews that call themselves Jews, and it's debatable if they really are Jews, some of them. Some of them are really legit Jews. Why? Because they believe in Jesus Christ. That's the controversy right now. If you say that a person is a Jew because they believe in Jesus Christ, you're going to get another group of people that say, no. A Jew is a Jew because they practice Judaism. They follow their rabbis and all this, and they live in the land. But there are Jews that don't live in the land that aren't allowed to come back to that land because their mother wasn't Jewish. So they can't come back unless they practice Judaism, and then they go through an interview process and all this kind of stuff. And then maybe one day in the future they could, but only if they give up their citizenship from Canada, from the US, wherever they are. It's not easy. It's not easy to become an Israeli. It's not easy. Not anybody can just come in there. All right. Lord cares for his eyes on the land continually. Yep, for sure. By that standard, almost no one in Israel is Jewish. Judaism in Israel is an extreme minority. Christian. Yeah, exactly. So the standard is, again, is according to Paul, again, is a Jew is one that is a Jew on the inside. What does that mean? That means you're circumcised from the heart, which means you have the commandments written on your heart already because you believe in Jesus Christ. Because you can't say, well, I'm circumcised, that means I'm a Jew. You can't say that. That's weird. Don't say that. Any more than you can say because you have a piece of land in Israel that makes you a Jew. That doesn't make you a Jew. There's Muslims living in Israel. There's Christians living in Israel. There's, where are they, Black Israel now, living there in certain areas. There's Ethiopian Jews living there in different pockets. Like, you have to have more of a category. And none of the category seems to be you have to be from one of the tribes of Israel. They don't say that right out in the open. Nobody, I don't know of anybody that says, hey, I'm from the tribe of Naphtali, other than maybe my sister, because her great-grandparents are from Lebanon, from that area. So I think somewhere along the way, she forgot who she was. She's one of the lost tribes of Israel. I think this is my theory. My sister Amy, you know, the one that's on this channel, ask her sometime. She doesn't even know who she is. She's probably one of the lost tribes. But it's interesting that that doesn't matter anymore. If I were to say, hey, I am from the tribe of Reuben, and I pack my bags and I move into Israel, they'd say, whoa, 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 time out there, slick. Do you practice Judaism? No, I don't. But I belong. My land is over there. Like, nope, you're not welcome here. Interesting. I actually have land on the other side of Jordan. We actually built a statue, a monument, if you will, that says that one day that you guys are going to forget about us. So this is why we built this monument, to say that we are a part of Israel, because one day you're going to say we're not part of Israel because we're from the tribe of Reuben. They don't even acknowledge the land on the other side of the Jordan. And Reuben, Gad, and a half tribe of Manasseh helped Israel, the rest of Israel, conquer the promised land. And as part of their promise, or part of the deal from Moses himself, Moses basically said, if you do this, we will give you, you will be allowed to go in that land. But if you think you could stay in that area on the other side of the Jordan without helping your brothers and sisters out, I'm not going to bless that. I'm not going to honor it. But if you could fight for your brothers and sisters in the promised land, you can have that land. So I'm asking you the question, where are the Reubenites? Where are the Gadites? Where's the half tribe of Manasseh? How come they don't have their land on the other side of the Jordan? And do you care if you live in Israel? If you're an Israeli citizen, do you care about the tribe of Reuben? If you don't, like it gets really cyclical fast, because all of a sudden the tribes are non-existent. When in Ezekiel, we know that one day the branch is going to combine two nations, the tribe of Joseph, the tribe of Judah, and make them into one branch. And they're going to be one nation, no longer two nations. There'll be one nation, and they're going to have all of that land. All of it. 100% of that land. Do you see that today? Nope. Do you see them acknowledge Jesus Christ as their King of Kings and Lord of Lords? No. Do you see them acknowledge God as the Father of Jesus Christ? No. Do you see two nations that are now one? No. You don't. Do you see them at peace? No. So they're not there yet. They're not there yet. And we don't know who's who right now. We really don't. Yeah, there's ethnic Jews. There's probably more Jews that don't know they're Jews than there are Jews that know that there are Jews. They're spread out all over the world over 2,000 years. God knows who they are. God knows who they are. He doesn't forget. He even says Joseph doesn't know who he is. So if God is saying that Joseph doesn't know who he is, and he's from the tribes of Israel, the 10 northern tribes, not the tribe of Judah, tribes representing the 10 northern tribes. Remember the ones that got carried away to captivity? They don't know who they are anymore. They're all mixed up. They don't know. They don't have the laws and ordinances anymore. They lost all that stuff. They forgot about it. How do we know this? Because when the Babylonians came in to capture Judah and Benjamin and some of the Levites, after 70 years, they didn't know who they were. They didn't understand the Torah. How do we know this? Ezra was almost plucking his beard going, guys, you don't remember this? And they would spend days reading the Torah out loud on a wooden platform with 5 people on this side, 5 people on this side saying, do you understand this? In the beginning was the Word, or in the beginning, was it Genesis 1:1? In the beginning. Let's just read it. What is Genesis 1:1? I blanked out. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Do you guys understand that? And they'd be like, no, I don't speak Hebrew. What? What do you speak? Aramaic. What? How did you lose Hebrew in 70 years? It happens. So you're telling me after 2,000 years that there isn't a chunk of people that don't know who they are? It's crazy, right? Only Jesus saves. Good night, all. Ohio is off the bed. Awesome. Good night. Everybody's going to bed. Awesome. We're going to continue on for a little bit. We're going to watch some more news footage. I think this is important because, yes, you need to continue to pray for Israel, but many people don't know what to pray. Like, I don't know what to pray. Should I pray that they wipe out Damascus? Should I pray that they get rid of Iran, wipe them off the planet? What should I pray? They don't know. They don't know what they should pray for. They're confused. A lot of people watch the news and they don't have a good night's sleep at night. They're like, man, I'm so confused. I don't get it. Just read Ezekiel. That'll help. Read Ezekiel 38 and 39. That'll help. Understand that God is doing something beautiful. He's doing something new. What is that? He did a new covenant. What was a new covenant? Well, that was Jesus Christ dying for us on the cross. Because you need a testator. Without a testator dying, it's not in effect. So you need a testator to die in order for you to have a new covenant in effect. So Jesus Christ came to earth, died for us, volunteered to die for us. It's a little bit different than Aaron and his sons because they didn't volunteer to become priests with Gershon, who are Levi's sons. Gershon, Korath, and Meshari, I think, is the third son that they had. So I have all these names in my head. I don't even know what I was trying to say. There. But yeah, basically, yeah, I lost it. Oh, with Jesus Christ volunteering to empty himself and pour himself into a human body and become the curse for us. He became the curse. Why? Because it says, cursed is anyone that hangs on the tree. He became that curse for us. Why? Because he was perfect, sinless, and he died for us. So God agreed to pass all judgment onto Jesus Christ. So when we say all judgment, if you look that word up in Hebrew, all means all, everything. If you look it up in Greek, it means everything. You probably thought I didn't understand Hebrew and Greek. How about Swahili? If you look up all in Swahili, it means all. All. So he died for all of us. All of us. And it's simple because when we believe in Jesus Christ, God the justifier justifies us because of what his son did. It's not because of what we did. His son did something special, magnificent. He died for us. Because he died for us, we have eternal life. Why? Because Jesus was the perfect sacrifice, and it pleased God to give everything over to Jesus. And Jesus judges. He has 100% judgment now. Why? Because God gave it all over to Jesus Christ, his son, to judge. And we're not being judged. Why? Because we're his body. He's not going to strike himself twice. Moses tried it. Didn't go over so well. He pleaded with God on several occasions, please let me into the promised land. But he couldn't go in because of unbelief. Hopefully that makes sense. Will come out of Rome. That's a good question. Let me pop that up. Do you think the false Jewish Messiah will come out of Rome? Well, I got some thoughts here. What if the Antichrist came inside from one of the 12 tribes? Reason being is, what if the Israelis don't accept anybody else from the outside to help them out? Wouldn't it be easier to have one of their own? Because after all, one of their own betrayed Jesus Christ. Judas, one of the 12. He knew everything. He went 2 by 2 into all the cities. He preached. Probably healed people as well. He had everything given to him on a platform. Everything was given to Judas, equal between all 12, and yet he betrayed. This is what I thought, well, which tribe would be likely if, again, this is my theory, because there's two theories. Either he's on the inside or he's on the outside. I would say it would be easier to betray people when you're on the inside because they're not expecting it. So what tribe would be most likely, especially if they're not paying attention to tribes? Because they aren't. They're not paying attention to what tribe you come from. I would say the most likely tribe to betray the Jews would be the tribe of Dan. Why? Because the tribe of Dan is missing from Revelation. We don't see the tribe of Dan sealed. That's the only tribe that's missing. Actually, I think there's another tribe missing. I think. For sure, Dan is missing. Now, let's say that the Antichrist comes from outside. He would have to have a sphere of influence that the Jews would go, you know what, this guy can help us out. And he would have to have severe influence over the rest of the world as well, that the rest of the world is like, this is our man, this is our guy. And Israel has to be comfortable saying, this is our guy too, because he's helping us build the temple. And he's giving us money to rebuild all this kind of stuff. Then, I don't know, it's possible. Don't forget, Zelensky's parents were Jewish. What? Back to Zelensky again? Weird, right? Most of the Israeli prime ministers before 1949, not before 1949, that were born before 1949, I think that would be fair, were not from Israel. Weird, right? It was only after 1949 that they changed that you have to be born in Israel to be a prime minister. But before that, you didn't have to be born in Israel. You could be born in Poland. You could be born somewhere else and be an Israeli prime minister. Most were Russian descent coming over. Because why? Because they lived in Russia and they were getting tossed around. They were getting abused in Russia. Various parts of Europe, if you will. Not just Russia, but they were scattered all over. They didn't have favor. Till, when was it? 1948. They moved back and somebody said, hey, why don't you guys go back here? We'll give you a little bit of space. We'll give you some space. Not all of the space, which is kind of weird because I think there's some rule against dividing up Israel. I think there's some rule against that. I don't think it's encouraged to divide Israel, but they don't seem to care about it right now today. It seems weird. You can't go into the the Western, I wanted to say the Western Gate, but it's not the Western Gate. They don't have Gaza. They don't have the Golden Heights completely. I think they have a portion of Jerusalem, but they don't have Bethlehem. They don't have Gad. They don't have Reuben. They don't have half tribe of Manasseh. So they don't have the whole territory, the whole area of Israel right now. It's interesting, right? Yeah, the iron and clay. Yeah, I would say if I were to build a little theory around that, I would say clay represents Adam, as in earthy. Iron would represent artificial intelligence or Nephilim DNA, if you will. Mix those together, you now have your sentient being that is both man and artificial intelligence combined together. I don't know what that would look like, but I think that would fit more the bill of perhaps the Antichrist, because he does come from the bottomless pit, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. When you think about CERN, they're trying hard to open up a hole somewhere, whether it's on Earth or whether it's in some other realm. I don't think you'll like what comes out of there. As in the book of Revelation, it says there are locust creatures or demonic spirits. They look weird, bizarre, quite bizarre, coming out from the bottomless pit. And the Antichrist comes out from the bottomless pit as well. And the devil gets tossed in there for 1,000 years. But you see, the Antichrist comes out from the pit, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, there could be something to the iron clay and iron mixed together. I think that's mixing DNA somehow. I think that's mixing it up. Two sources, earth and iron. Robotics. Just my thought. Let's see here. What else do we have here? So they would be ready. So they would be ready, the Old Testament, to look for a Messiah, Ben David. They don't read the Old Testament. That's the problem. If the Jews would read the Old Testament, that's one thing, but they don't read it. They don't read it all. It's like saying all Christians read the whole Bible. Most of us don't read the whole Bible. So why would you think a Jew reads all of the Old Testament? They don't. They listen to their rabbis, and their rabbis teach them from their rabbis, and their rabbis, their rabbis. And those guys usually spend a lot of time reading the Old Testament in Hebrew. If they know Hebrew. It's like a minority of people that read the Old Testament. Just walk down Israel and just say, hey, do you read the Torah? Do you read the Old Testament? Do you read just the first 5 books? They'll be like, yeah, no, I don't. I'm just a Jew. It's weird, right? Reading, don't want to be here for that. Mixing DNA, that's kind of what I'm leaning on. I don't know. You know, I don't mind being the guy that spitballs and throws theories out, right? Because I could be wrong. People get mad for having an opinion. They're like, no, don't share your thoughts. Well, I'm sharing my thoughts. I'm thinking it's going to be something diabolical like that, where somebody either recovers from some serious injury that maybe normally he wouldn't be able to recover because it's a mortal wound. Not saying that he died, but saying that perhaps if he doesn't get this, let's say Nephilim juice, NJ, Nephilim juice, that should be like a t-shirt, Nephilim juice. Maybe not. That could basically replenish the person and now you have Nephilim. Now you have human DNA mixed together. Now you have a temple that Satan could enter, because we are the temple of the Holy Spirit. Interesting, right? Yeah, many believers don't read. I was one of them. Before 2 years ago, I would hardly read the Bible. I would just go off of what people told me. But then I read the Bible 12 times in the last 2 years, and suddenly I'm like, oh, now I get God's character. I get it. Your son died for us. Who's us? The whole world. Meaning anyone that believes in Jesus Christ, that he died for us, rose again on the third day, forgiven us of all our sins, past, present, future, has given us eternal life. Like, you're in forever. You're in. You're joint heir in Christ. You have a seat in heavenly places. You're in. Yeah, I'd encourage you to read lots. Read lots of the Bible. Like, pour into this stuff. I was going to make a Bible study today on Exodus. I even drew out, I don't know where this is. I even drew out the family tree of Levi. I was going to make a video on it this morning talking about, why the rebellion of Korah, why that happened, and tie it all the way back to when Moses fled. Remember the two guys that were fighting? Well, I think I found who those two guys were in the Bible. The two guys that were fighting with Moses. They actually helped lead the Korah rebellion. Remember in Numbers, I want to say number 16, where Korah's like, hey, you know what? Who made you prince? Who made you ruler over us? Doesn't that sound familiar? Oh, sorry, it was, Korah, Dathan, and another guy. What's the other guy's name? Dathan. Do I have him here? I don't think I wrote him down. Anyways, 3 of them were rebelling. 3 or 4 of them. And basically, they were coming against Moses and Aaron saying, who made you prince? Moses fought with a couple of, or argued with some guys, said, hey, why are you guys fighting amongst each other? One of those, I believe, was Dathan. Dathan helped Korah lead the rebellion. Korah is a descendant of Levi. His job was to carry the vessels from the tabernacle, like the ark and all this stuff. That was his job. Aaron and his son's job was to cover everything regarding the tabernacles, the bars, the sockets, the vessels, everything, and put them in badger skins, cover them with scarlet, cover them with blue, cover them with purple, depending what item it was, put them into sacks almost. And then the Israelites gave them 6 wagons. So 2 people on each wagon, representing the 12 tribes of Israel. So 2 times 6, 12. And then they got 2 oxen, if you will. 2 ox for each one of the 6 wagons. And their job was to they would put all the tabernacle furnishings and everything in these 6 wagons, except for the ark, except for the candlesticks, the showbread, all that stuff, because Korah and some of his brothers were to carry that part. They were responsible for carrying that, but they couldn't touch it until Aaron's sons covered everything up first. Then they would show up and put everything on their shoulders. The rest of the stuff went into the 6 wagons. So Korah was probably not too happy that they had to walk for 40 years, whereas the other people just basically threw everything into these 6 wagons And they didn't have to carry the tent, the bars, the sockets, all this kind of stuff. So they just says right here. Here's what the Korathites had to carry: the ark, the table, the candlestick, the altars, the vessels of the sanctuary, and all the hangings. And then Merari, that's why I couldn't remember the name. Merari was responsible for the boards, the bars, the pillars, the sockets, the vessels, and all service of the pillars at the court, and the pins and the cords. And then the Gershonites, which are, so basically I'm talking about the three sons of Levi. The Gershonites, they handled the tabernacle, as in the tent, the covering, the hangings of the door, the cords. That's what their job was. So they had 2 wagons with 4 oxen. Korathites had no wagons. Merari had 4 wagons, 8 oxen. Interesting, right? Interesting. So yeah, lots of stuff there. That'll be another video. All right, what if the Antichrist claims to be Jesus Christ? Will he be the false Christ, and how will the Jews accept him? I don't think he will declare himself to be Jesus Christ. I don't think he's going to say that, because that won't work. I think instead what he'll say is, you know, that Messiah that was promised in the Old Testament, the one that's going to bring peace, the one that is going to save you guys from these wicked nations, that's me. That's me. My name is George. They'll be like, oh, George, wow, we didn't know it was you. Welcome. Because Messiah means Christ in Greek. Greek is Messiah, anointed one. Jesus is our name that we use for Joshua, if you will. So I don't think he will call himself Joshua. I don't think so. I don't think he'll call himself Jesus. I don't think so. Possible. Possible. I just think it might be like some other name, but he'll come across as the Messiah, because Jesus said there will be many Christs, many that will say that they are Christ. So yeah, I guess from that perspective, like, I don't think it says they will say, I am Jesus, I am Jesus, I am Jesus. I think they say, I am Christ. I am your Savior. I am the Messiah. Is my understanding. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Yeah, many false Christs. So many false Messiahs. So Antichrist is false Messiah. So, and he doesn't become a false Messiah until he breaks that contract with Israel halfway through. Until then, he's probably their Messiah. It's like, yeah, you're doing everything that we expected. You're building us a temple. Like you said that you were going to, remember when you said to King David that you were going to build a temple? Remember you said that? Yeah. I personally think King David got it wrong. I think he thought God was talking about Solomon. But God was talking about his son. He said, my son that's going to come from your loins, my son will build a temple, my temple. I will be his father, and he will be my son. Let's talk about Jesus Christ. But Solomon, when he came into power, said, the temple that my father wanted built, because remember, who came up with the blueprints? King David did. He wrote out all the blueprints. God said, you're not the one building the temple. I'm going to have my son build the temple down the road. I will call him my son. I will be his father. King David just got all obsessed with writing the blueprints. And then he gave it to Solomon. He's like, be a smart guy. Be a man. Put this together. All my servants are ready to help you out with these blueprints. And then Solomon prayed for wisdom. But before that, King David said, you're already wise. You already know what to do with these people, because there were some wicked people. He says, don't let this guy's whore head go down to the grave. One of the guys that was throwing rocks at King David. Remember him when he fled from his son Absalom, crossing the Jordan on a boat? I don't know if you remember that. They put him on a little boat across the Jordan. But King David said, you'll know what to do. You have wisdom already. This was before God met him in a dream twice. Remember that. Because when Solomon woke up, he realized he was dreaming. So God spoke to him in a dream, saying that he'll make him wiser than any king before or after him. Interesting, right? So then King Solomon basically said, yeah, this is the temple I'm building because it was on my father's heart to build a temple, but God said, no, he is not to build it. It said, I'm building the temple. It's me. This is who the promise was. I'm the guy. Meanwhile, he had a problem later with about 1,000 women. So I think King David might have made a tactical error. Again, this is just me saying that perhaps God wasn't talking about a physical temple. He was talking about his son, Jesus Christ, being the temple. Because remember, Jesus Christ said to the Pharisees, destroy this temple in 3 days and I will build it back up. And they're like, it took 48 years to build this temple. And you're not even 30, or you're 30 or something like that. How can you say you can do this? But then in the footnotes, it says, well, Jesus wasn't talking about the temple. He's talking about his body. And afterwards, the disciples remembered that that's what he said. Because remember, when he was on the cross, people were probably close enough. I think he was probably only a few feet off the ground. I don't think he was up on the mountain above everyone. I think he was within spitting distance where people could spit on his face and hurl insults that he could hear them, saying if he was truly Christ, he would pull himself down off of those nails, rip his flesh off those nails, and come down, and we will worship him. Because remember, he said that he would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, but yet he can't even take himself off of the cross. It's kind of weak. It's kind of a weak. I don't think he's the Messiah, because if he pulls himself off the cross, I will worship him. And they spit on him. Crazy, right? So that's why I think maybe King David made a little bit of a technical error. You might say to me, well, Shane, King David's never made a mistake in his life. He's never messed up. He's never made a mistake. He never made a mistake counting all the soldiers when they were at peace, and he decided this is a good time to count people and lost 85,000 people by the destroying angel. That was David's fault. He never slept with another man's wife and got a man killed. That was David's fault. He made a mistake. All right, back. I thought maybe we got hit with an EMP strike. Where was I going with that stuff? Yeah, so Jesus says that he is a temple. He's going to destroy the temple and build it again in 3 days, talking about his body, which is interesting. And in Revelation, we see New Jerusalem coming down, and there is no temple. Why? Because God is there now. Jesus being that temple. We don't need any more light anymore. Not saying that there isn't any more light. Just in New Jerusalem, you don't need the light source from the sun and the moon. I believe the sun and the moon are still going to be around after the Millennium Kingdom. Again, that's my humble opinion, because Jesus is the light. He is the source. When you're in New Jerusalem, you don't need light. You don't need it. He is the light. He is the temple. It's interesting, right? Crazy, crazy. All right. I am going to go to bed. It is almost midnight my time. I hope Israel makes it through the night. I do. I think it's morning now, so I think things will probably calm down. Let me just have a quick little look here. I think so. I'm just looking to see CNN here. What's going on in CNN? Yeah, it looks like there's just footage being looped now. So, anyways, if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment. For some reason, these comments disappear once I go off air. I don't know why. I still can't figure out how to keep these comments, but they disappear. And when people come back to this channel and they watch the video like this, they're like, how come I don't see any people on here? Well, right now there's about 50 people. We did have about 66 people at one time. So people will be looking at this and how come there's no comments? Well, I don't know. Can't figure out the software. Just deletes it. Deletes it once this ends. But anyways, hope you guys have a good night wherever you are. Thanks for hanging out with me for a couple of hours. I really appreciate it. And tomorrow night, we have an interesting round table. We're going to be talking about the Titanic. Was that a Black Swan event? So join us tomorrow night. It's going to be interesting. And I believe Robert Breaker's coming on as well. He's got some interesting stories to talk about the Titanic tomorrow night. 6:30 Mountain Standard Time. You don't want to miss it. I'm going to be diving deep. All right. See you guys.